Hello and welcome to a Physionic mini video. Today we're going to be answering the question of do NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, acetaminophen, anything like that, that has NSAID on the label, do those impact muscle growth, hypertrophy in elderly individuals? And we'll just say quantify elderly as people who are over the age of 50 years old, even though you may not feel like you're elderly at the age of 50 years old. And I completely understand that. But just for the purposes of an operational definition, that's what we're going to use. So, in a short, sweet, science-based video, if you want to know the answer to that, let's get right into it. So, do NSAIDs and NSAIDs negatively impact elderly individuals from gaining muscle? The answer is no. Now, I realize that if you've seen some of my other videos on this topic, you're probably like, whoa, hold up. And I can understand why you might feel that way, because I've said that yes, it does have an impact when it comes to muscle growth in general. But when it comes to specifically elderly individuals, it seems that it does not have a negative impact. It may actually potentially have a positive impact for muscle growth. Now, let's try and make a little bit of sense for that, well, in one scenario, when we're talking about anyone else, kind of younger individuals, you're talking about people that don't typically have systemic inflammation. So if they don't have systemic inflammation in their body, you end up weightlifting to build some muscle, right? Because we know that's going to happen. Then your inflammatory system then builds up and it sends out a reaction. So that reaction occurs, and then that tells your body to then repair those sites. That makes sense. Then if you take an NSAID, however, an NSAID, then that's going to reduce that inflammation, and it's going to tell the body that there's not as much of a need and there's not going to be as much of an immune response to then rebuild that musculature and then build on top of that musculature. So that is the proposed mechanism for why NSAIDs have a negative impact on muscle growth for younger individuals and generally the rest of the population. However, if you're talking about a person who's elderly, they tend to have more of arthritis, tend to have more of osteoporosis, tend to have more osteoarthritis, just any sort of inflammation that happens in the joints that's going to happen really throughout the entire body, systemic inflammation. So in that case, then you're going to see more of a beneficial impact from NSAIDs, because although you might be weightlifting and you would expect the same exact thing, and technically it does happen, your immune system then comes into play and starts building on those tears that you end up causing on your musculature. Now, the issue with that then is because your body's always in systemic inflammation, that the added inflammation really just sends your body into overdrive. At that point, you're just constantly have inflammation in your system, and NSAIDs can have an impact by reducing the overall inflammation, and then that leads to then you can actually see a noticeable increase. Now, again, these are just kind of proposed mechanisms. We're not 100% certain why. That's why the research is kind of split in either direction. In some cases, yes, NSAIDs help, and in certain cases, or at least at the very least, they don't hurt, and in other cases they do hurt in terms of our muscle growth potential. But for elderly individuals, because of general systemic inflammation, the idea is that NSAIDs will help reduce that systemic inflammation, and then when we do cause trauma to the musculature, then that is an appropriate response, and then your immune system will deal with it, and NSAIDs will not get in the way, or not get enough in the way to cause any sort of decrease in muscle growth potential. Hopefully I explained that well. All right, so that said, if you'd like to know more information, of course, you can watch the full scholarly video, or you can look below into the description box and you'll see my article with all my sources and everything, talking about the nuances of this kind of confusing topic. So that said, hopefully you found the video informative, and if you did, I would certainly appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, and I will hopefully have the pleasure of seeing you in the next video. Have an awesome, awesome day. See ya.